the silence broke like bone. Reek didn't hear the creature. He heard the absence of every other sound. The abrupt, unnatural quiet that meant the savannah was holding its breath. He wasn't tracking prey, he was being stalked. His lungs burned, his leather sandals barely gripping the dust. The Aculean hand axe, a clumsy weight in his sweating palm. They were running on instinct, fueled by the terrible, close knowledge that they had strayed too far from the safety of the ridge. This was not a hunt. This was an escape. The air was thick with the scent of fear and the metallic tang of dry earth. Mara, just ahead, risked a glance back. Her eyes, wide with the strain of flight, caught the flicker of a shadow low in the dense, thorny scrub, a shadow too large, too silent, to be anything but death itself. 500,000 years before us, the world was a jagged, unforgiving masterpiece. Survival wasn't luck. It was a brutal, relentless art. This is the story of Homo erectus, the upright walker, and the moment they first truly understood what it meant to be prey. They had been scavenging. A fresh, bloody wildebeest carcass lay half hidden, but the feast was short-lived. The true owner had arrived, not a lion of the plains, but a massive silhouette of pure muscular menace, a saber-toothed cat, Smilodon populator. Its coat a deceptive mottled pattern, its enormous canines hanging like twin daggers. The predator had claimed the kill. Reek showed only command that mattered. He pointed to the rocks. They bolted, not towards the open savanna, but towards the cluster of basalt stone, their meager bundles of dry tinder clutched tight. Speed wasn't their advantage, knowledge was. Reek knew the geography. He knew the predator's aversion to fire and confined spaces. The gap between them and the blur of spotted fury was closing. They were running a race where the smallest stumble meant the end of their lineage. They dived into the narrowest fissure of the rocks. Mara, running last, heard the deep, wet snorting of its breath just behind her. Rick whirled. He pulled out a prepared ember bundle, a relic of a past fire, carefully nurtured in a hollowed gourd. He thrust it into a pile of dry grass they had pre-stashed at the cave entrance, a grim, desperate insurance policy. A thick plume of acrid gray smoke erupted, followed by the first hungry orange lick of flame. The Smilodon skidded to a halt, its massive head recoiling from the unexpected heat and light. The fire was a shield, but the cave was quickly becoming a trap. The scent of rain, masked by the smoke, now arrived with a cold reality. Outside, the sky, which moments ago was clear, darkened in an unnatural, bruised purple. A sudden, violent African storm broke. The rain didn't fall, it deluged. The tiny stream that runs nearby transformed instantly into a raging coffee-colored torrent. Gel yelled, pointing frantically. The water level was rising rapidly. Their sanctuary was turning into a death pit. They were on a floodplain. Their fire, their only defense, was sputtering, dying in the deluge. Reek looked at Mara. Their eyes conveyed the immediate, terrible choice: stay and drown, or face the predator in the storm. The elements and the beast had cornered them. But this was the defining moment for Homo erectus. It wasn't muscle that would save them. It was the spark of abstract thought. Rick grabbed a heavy, flat rock. Mara grabbed a bundle of long, thick reeds collected earlier for bedding. Zen and Gel wedged heavy stones to create a small, temporary barricade against the incoming water. Rick smashed the flat rock against the wall, creating a deafening crack that cut through the thunder. He didn't aim for the Smilodon, but for the effect of the sound against the heavy drumming of the rain. Mara, with a speed born of desperation, bound the reeds together, creating a thick, flexible cord. Reich took the cord and, with a few precise twists, used a sharp flint edge to notch the end of a long, straight branch. He bound the flint edge to the notch. The composite tool was born from necessity. He now held a spear with a truly formidable, reinforced head. The water was now an ankle deep. The fire was a dying hiss. The Smilodon, emboldened by the weakening flame, took a confident step towards the entrance. Evolution is not a slow climb. It's a sudden, desperate leap. The upright walker was about to prove that cunning, not teeth, was the ultimate weapon. Reek didn't wait. He stepped out of the cave and into the pouring rain, holding his new, powerful spear low. The Sabre-Tooth let out a challenging, gargling roar, a promise of instant death. Rick didn't attack the cat, he attacked the environment. He drove the point of the spear into the ground, not in front of the Smilodon, but just to its left, on the muddy, sloping bank of the newly formed torrent. The force of the river, funneled by Reek's small intervention, was suddenly directed into the soft, rain-soaked earth beneath the predator's back paws. The ground gave way. The enormous cat let out a howl of surprise and frustration as its footing vanished. It slipped, momentarily losing its deadly balance. Mara and Zen emerged from the cave, throwing a volley of small, sharp stones to confuse and harass. The Smilodon, momentarily blinded and panicked, decided the meal was no longer worth the struggle. It regained its footing, let out a final, disgusted snarl at the creatures who dared to outsmart it, and vanished into the downpour. They survived, not because they were stronger, but because they were smarter. They took a simple stone, a piece of wood, and an ember, and turned them into fire, a weapon, and an idea. This was the moment the balance of power shifted. The world was still deadly, but the mind of man was now the deadliest force of all. Rick turned, looked at his companions, a flicker of something new in his eyes, not just relief, but pride. They wrapped the remaining meager piece of meat in large, waxy leaves, shouldered their tools, and began the long walk back to the tribe, the heavy-headed spear leading the way. Their journey is far from over. Ahead lies the rival tribe, the discovery of true shelter, and the ultimate mastery of the flame. The age of the predator is ending. The age of the human mind is just beginning. They endured the deadliest. They were our ancestors. Did Homo erectus master fire, or did fire master them? Click the video on your screen now to see more stories from Out Ancestors. And don't forget to subscribe for more epic survival history.